Let me look at another example. Almost all of you, I suspect, when you file your stories from the UN, nowadays you refer to the Goldstone report, the report by Richard Goldstone. You refer to it as controversial. The controversial Goldstone report. Day in and day out, I hear it. Was the report controversial? Goldstone concluded that Israel used deliberately disproportionate force designed to punish, humiliate, and terrorize the civilian population. That was his first main conclusion. And the second one was the systematic and deliberate nature of the activities leave the mission in no doubt that responsibility lies in the first place with those who designed, planned, ordered, and oversaw the operations. So Israel launched a terroristic attack on the civilian population, and that you can't say it was caused by bad apples, soldiers in the field who ran amok. No. He said what happened in Gaza was caused by those who oversaw the operation, the military and political elites. Is that a controversial statement? Are those statements controversial? The alternative question is to ask, in the face of the evidence, what else could Goldstone have concluded before, during, and after those 22 days? The Israeli political and military elites were openly saying what Goldstone concluded. The head of the Israeli Northern Command said before the attack, "We will yield disproportionate force against every village from which shots are fired on Israel and cause immense damage and destruction." The former head of the Israeli National Security Council said, "The next war will lead to intense suffering among the enemy population, the destruction of homes and infrastructure, and the suffering of hundreds of thousands of people." Tzipi Livni, the foreign minister, as the attack was winding down, she said, "Hamas now understands that when you fire on Israel's citizens, it responds by going wild. And that is a good thing," said Ms. Livni. The day after the attack was over, on June 19th, she went on Channel 10 News in Israel and said, quote, "Israel demonstrated real hooliganism during the course of the recent operation, which is what I demanded." Now, when Ms. Livni goes to the UK and she gets served with papers, a warrant for war crimes, she's shocked. She's bewildered. She's perplexed. She seems to be under the impression that committing real hooliganism is protected by the Fourth Geneva Convention. A former Israeli defense official told the International Crisis Group, describing what happened, he said, "With an armada of fighter planes attacking Gaza, Israel decided to play the role of a mad dog for the sake of future deterrence." A former senior Israeli security official told the crisis group that Israel had gained its deterrence because it has shown Hamas, Iran, and the region that it can be as lunatic as any of them. Lunatic, mad dog, wild, real hooliganism, causing intense suffering among the civilian population. What else was Goldstone to conclude from those statements? And how can any reasonable person describe his conclusion in the face of the Israeli statements as being controversial? The other perplexity of this claim, which many of you, I'm afraid, repeat, that the report was controversial, is that the Goldstone report was not the first, it was the last in a produced a very substantial report on what happened in Gaza. In fact, not only was Goldstone's report not controversial, the Goldstone report was the most cautious of all the human rights reports that came out. Goldstone did not use the phrase war crime to describe what Israel did with the white phosphorus. The Goldstone mission was more cautious. It said Israel might have committed crimes against humanity in Gaza. The Goldstone mission recommended that Israel, if it doesn't carry out serious investigations, go before the International Criminal Court. The Nobel Peace Prize winner, Amnesty, went much further than Goldstone because Amnesty called for a comprehensive, total arms embargo on Israel. It said, and I'm quoting it, the UN, notably the Security Council, should impose an immediate, comprehensive arms. The Goldstone report was not only not controversial, the Goldstone report was rather cautious, conservative, and judicious as compared to the other human rights reports. The question then comes up, why did the Goldstone report, unlike all the others, evoke such a... And there the answer is, it's not because of what the report said, which was completely uncontroversial. It was because of who said it. Declared Zionist. He says, I worked for Israel all of my adult life. He says, I fully support Israel's right to exist. He says, I am a firm believer in the absolute right of the Jewish people to have their home there. He has an honorary doctorate from the Hebrew University. His mother was an activist in the Zionist movement. His daughter did Aliyah, Zionist immigration to Israel. Goldstone says that it was the Nazi Holocaust which inspired him to become these weapons to discredit all critics of its policies. If you criticize Israel, along comes Mr. Goldstone, and he neutralizes all of those ideological weapons. As the Israeli journalist Gideon Levy put it, this time the messenger is propaganda-proof. Mr. Goldstone, we look at his background, he doesn't look like a typical anti-Semite. You look at Mr. Holocaust denier, now Israel has a real problem on its hands. If Goldstone was not an anti-Semite, not a self-made or a fool, and a former chief prosecutor for the war crimes investigations in Yugoslavia, then the only plausible explanation for the devastating content of the report he authored was that it was true. And that's the paradox of the Goldstone report. What made the Goldstone report controversial was that it was uncontroversial. That is, it was irrefutable. Thank you.